Hi, my name is Vesna Karapetrova, and we're here today at the Canadian Macedonian Historical Society on Wednesday, April 19th, 2017, to interview Mr. Louis Petrofski for the Canadian Macedonian Historical Society archives. Welcome, Louis, and thank you for coming to share your story with us here at the Canadian Macedonian Historical Society archives. Can you tell us, to begin with, when and where you were born?
I was born in Macedonia, 1940, in the village of Konjsko.
Can you tell us where the village Konjsko is around?
The village of Konjsko in Prespansko jezero.
Is it right on the lake?
Right on the lake, yes.
So it must be very pretty.
It is, yeah.
And can you tell us a little bit about your parents? Who were they?
My parents, my mother her name was Luba. She was born in Albanian side, in a village, Perovo. My father, he was born in the village Konjsko, which was Macedonia.
Do you know how it came, the story that your father went to the Macedonian part in Mala Prespa, which is now in Albania, for her to be a bride in your village?
Well, at that time, the borders were free, and my father can travel, you know what I mean, from one side to the other, you know, from, at the time, it used to be Yugoslavia. From Yugoslavia, you can travel to Albania. But later on, the border were closed, and nobody could go anywhere anymore. So
it was all Macedonia, and yeah. Macedonians could travel between the villages?
Between the villages, but not in Albanian side, where my mother was born, because they put the borders, and it was very strict. You could not travel anymore.
Right. Now, your parents, are they both Macedonian?
They're both Macedonian.
So
yeah.
your mother?
My mother is Macedonian, so is my father.
Do you know, Louis, I know that the birthdays of your parents probably, you know, you might not have specifics, but around what year they were born?
My father, I don't know the month, but my father was born in 1905. And my mother was born, I believe, in 1907. Yeah, they were about 2 years apart.
Okay.
Yeah.
And do you remember your mother's name and family name?
My mother's name was Luba. Especially for her parents, I don't remember anything. I've never seen her parents because the border was closed and we could not travel into the Albanian side, which is Macedonia, of course, but nevertheless there were borders, you know, that we cannot any longer travel to Albania.
So by the time you were born, you didn't see your grandparents?
No, I don't remember any relatives of my mother's side.
Do you know their names?
No, I don't know the names, no.
Okay. But you know that they spoke what?
They spoke Macedonian, yes. Yeah.
And your parents also, they spoke?
Macedonian.
And your brothers and sisters, how many do you have and where were they born?
I have 2 sisters and 5 brothers. We were all born in the village of Konjsko. And now my 4 brothers, they passed away. I'm the last one alive, you know. And
are they? Were most of your siblings in the village, or did they also go out of the village?
No, they're in different places, but most of them they're in Resen. I don't have any recollection actually for all of them, but I know there is some in Resen and some other places which I don't know which places they are.
Right, so most of them remained in Macedonia.
In Macedonia, they're all in Macedonia.
Yes.
Yeah.
Right, you have one who went to Australia.
Yeah, my youngest brother, he went to Australia, but as they were driving to go to work, and somehow the train came by, they were crossing the rail, and they got hit, and everybody got killed, you know.
Tragedy.
That was a tragic
That's
incident, yeah.
Too bad.
Yeah.
Now, in terms of in terms of your village, Konjsko, here we have a really nice picture. Can you tell us about the picture? And with Konjsko, how far is it from Resen? Is it
From Resen, Konjsko, it's far about practically 8-9 hours walking. But we usually, when we went to Resen, we went with a boat from Konjsko to Perovo, and from Perovo they walked the rest of the way to Resen. Yeah.
okay? And in terms of your village, Louis, you were there, and how old were you before you came to Canada?
I left my country when I was exactly 16 years old on my birthday, because I knew if I'm any younger, they might send me back, so I had to wait for my exact birthday.
Yes, and let's just go back to your parents' family, your father's parents. Can you tell me, do you know, I know you have no recollection of your mom's, but how about your father's parents? Do you know who
My
they are?
father's parents, I remember his father very vaguely, you know what I mean? But I don't remember anybody else other than his father. That he was
Your grandfather?
My grandfather,
Your
yeah.
And his name?
Svetko. His name was Svetko, yeah.
Okay, and your grandmother?
My grandmother, I don't know.
So-
She wasn't alive when I was young.
Okay, so you
Yes.
don't have a recollection of the
No,
name.
no.
Okay. Now, in terms of your grandparents, I know you don't have a recollection of them because you were young and so on. What language do you think they spoke?
They spoke Macedonian, definitely.
Definitely.
Yeah.
Okay. And before we finish with the family history, we have some more pictures here. Can you tell us who they are? I think your sisters.
Yeah. That's my sister, and that's my sister and my
and her
brother-in-law.
name, the first one?
Ivanka.
Yeah. And was she younger than you, or
Or younger than me, yeah.
younger? And the
definitely.
other sister?
The other sister was Mila. Yeah, Mila or Milica. Mila. We call her Mila.
Now, were your siblings all younger than you, Louis? Were you the oldest?
No, I am the third oldest, and the rest of them, I had 4 brothers who were older than me.
Yes. We have some more pictures here. I believe this one is of your brother who was in Australia.
Yeah, that
And-
was,
and
yeah.
his name?
His name is Calcio.
And the other picture is of your other brother?
Yeah, that's my brother Nicola and his wife, and his son and his daughter-in-law. Yeah.
And they live in Resen still.
Yeah,
they
they
were
live
living
yeah.
in Resen.
This is-
Now, I know you said that you left your village. You left your village when you were
16 years
only
old.
16.
Yeah.
Tell us about your memories of your village. I know that you have some vivid memories. How big was Konjsko?
The village, as I remember at the time, it started with 3 families and grew up. By the time I left my country, grew up to about 12 families, with about almost 150 people living. So it was a very nice place, but the life was very hard because all you had to do is work with the land, fishing. The other job, for example, the fishing was mostly to make some money on the side, you know what I mean? We used to fish, we cut, whatever we caught, we had to go to Resen to sell it, to make some money. But it was a hard life.
What kind of agriculture did the people have to do?
They had to work the farms, the gardens, you know, to grow vegetables and whatever, and they had to preserve for the winter, you know, fish, for example, they had to preserve for the winter, and every fall we had to kill either lamb or a pig, you know what I mean, and they used to preserve it, you know what I mean, for the winter, to be able to have something to eat, you know. It was an easy life, you know what I mean.
So most of the people just sustained themselves from their garden?
From their own, whatever they had, you know what I mean, farming and gardening and whatever, you know what I mean. That was the only lifestyle, you know what I mean. We don't have any luxury. We had no store where you can go and buy whatever necessity you need. We had to go across the lake or all the way to Resen, which was very far.
And do you remember any of your like your school life? Was there
My
a school
life,
in Konjsko?
I started at age 12.
Okay.
I mean, sorry, age 8. And I went to grade 4, and at the time, the communism fell apart, you know what I mean? And they gave us the land back to the private sector, because until that time was under the communist system. But being under the communist system, nothing was productive, you know what I mean? And when the government saw that there is no productivity, people are starving, they give us the land back, and my father says, I'm sorry, he says, I can't send you anymore to school. You gotta work with the land. And
so you were a child when your land was taken over?
Yes.
Can you tell us a little bit about, do you remember that?
I remember that was in the Tito's era, 1940, about 1940, 42, something like that.
Yes.
And then 1952, when I was about 12 years old, they gave us the land back because, as I said before, the country was going.
So when you were a child and the land was taken over by the government.
By the government.
What kind of life? What did your parents do for a living? Like, how did they? Their land was taken away. So what did they do?
It was very hard, as they say. You know what I mean? In that system was, what's mine is yours, and what's yours is mine. And the people who were working on the land, they were not doing it properly, and the land wasn't productive. And everybody was starving. So Tito realized that the country is going bankrupt, people are starving. He says, no, the land going to the private sector, and finally the country got on their feet, you know what I mean? And people started living.
So for all those,
good.
Basically during your childhood, you didn't have your own land. Your family didn't have your own land until...
They had it at one point, but then it was taken. But didn't work too well, you know what I mean? And they gave it to us back again because.
Right. So when the land was taken, what were the people doing? Like, what were your parents doing?
It was like this. They had one, like let's say here we say a foreman, you know what I mean?
Like a manager.
Like a manager to dictate to everybody what to do, what not. And we had one of those, and he takes you to the farm, and they measure how much of the land you're supposed to dig it out, the soil and whatnot, so you can produce the product that you're going to be planting, you know what I mean? But, in the people, they weren't working the land the way they're supposed to.
So they were told what to do.
Yeah, they tell you, but he digs one shovel here, one shovel 1 foot ahead, you know what I mean? You cannot grow anything when the land is not worked properly. So that's when, as I said before, Tito said, no, we got to give the land to the private sector so the country will get on its feet, and everything worked well after that.
Right, and when you went to school, until you were 12, you said?
Yeah.
What language was the formal language in the school?
Macedonian. Macedonian. In Yugoslavia, we were at the time 6 different countries together, and every country had their own rights, their own schools, everything, you know what I mean? But when it was internationally, we only spoke Serbo-Croatian. In the army, for example, you know what I mean?
If you had to go to the army. Now, do you, so when you went to school and you spoke Macedonian with all your friends?
Of course, Macedonian,
Yes.
all the way, yeah.
Yeah. Did, then, do you remember any of your school life activities?
School life, it was very good. I mean, school, you know, it's I really like school, you know, as I said before, you know what I mean? My dream was, when I was a young kid, you know, to have a briefcase in my hand and a suit on my back, you know what I mean? I didn't know what other, you know, what kind of thing I would have in front of me, but at least I wanted to do something good, something educational. But as I said, you know, I didn't have the privilege to go all the way to school, you know what I mean?
So when you were 12, what happened?
When I was 12, my father says, no, I'm sorry. He says, I need you for the farm now. You can't go to school. And I stopped. And then he realized he made a mistake. I tried to continue, but they would not accept me anywhere because I was 2 years behind. When he decided to go, I was 14. And they're not going to put me 14 years old with 12 years old, you know what I mean? Here the system is different, but back then in my country, that's the way it was. If you were behind 2 years, you know, they wouldn't accept you again. I tried to go to oficerska škola, you know what I mean?
Like an army.
Army.
Related,
It says, to go to oficerska škola, you have to have a middle school, you know what I mean? And I said, until yesterday, you didn't have to have any middle school. That was yesterday, he says, but the system has changed, you know, now you have to have a middle school. And then I said to myself, well, I don't think there is any future for me. When I went back home to tell my father, because that was in Resen when we went to ask for this, you know, with a cousin of mine. And he says, what happened? I said, nothing happened. I says, you know, they won't accept me anywhere. I says, so he says, what are you going to do now? I says, I know what to do, but I'm too young. I says, you know, I got to be in the right age. When I got to 16 years of age, you know what I mean, I was 14 at the time. I reached 16 and I said to my father, goodbye, Dad. And I went to Greece, over the border, illegally, and came to Canada.
So you decided to leave when you were 16. If we go just a little bit before you left, can you tell us about your life in Konjsko in terms of when you were growing up? At that time, there was a war, and a lot of Konjsko is located right in the Prespa region. Tell us a little bit about where it's located and what you saw of the other Macedonians coming through who were being forced from their homelands, from the Aegean Macedonia.
You know, we were in a very, very bad location. I mean, it's a good location, but at the time, because too many wars were going on, especially with the Greek side, you know what I mean? We were very fortunate that nothing ever happened in our area, in our side of Macedonia.
So it was
you know?
peaceful.
Peaceful. I can see the planes in the evening bombing the villages in Nivici and German at the other side of...
Aegean part of Macedonia.
In the Asian Macedonia, the Greek part of Macedonia.
Yes.
The villages were burning, believe me. At nighttime was like a daytime from the flame that was going on. And my father was crying her eyes out, you know what I mean? Look, she says, what they're doing to our people. Isn't that tragedy, you know what I mean? But nobody would do. England was involved, I think, in the situation. They were bombing like crazy.
And then, as the people from the Aegean part came through, did they come through your village?
Not through my village.
But you saw them?
But no, we saw them going through from Nivici, that area there, from German, going to what's his name, Brajčino, Ljubojno, that area, you know what I mean, into Macedonia, because they were across the border, across the lake.
So you knew that they
we
were
knew
coming?
That, yeah.
But they didn't reach actually your village?
No, they went to Ljubojno and Resen and all the way down to Skopje. Some of them, they went to other countries after that, you know what I mean, like in Poland and some, I think they went in Russia, things like that.
And Louis, can you tell us a little bit about your your memories of your village because luckily you were you were grown up. What were some of the happier memories that you have of your village, like celebrations and name days?
We have very beautiful customs. You know what I mean? You can't beat. We celebrate Christmas, Easter, a lot of other occasions. Not one day, 3 days. One day with the family, the next day we going from a house to a house, visiting people, drinking and whatnot, you know what I mean? And then the third day, if you had a distant family, like from further away, you know what I mean? You take a day off, you travel, you go and see the rest of the family, wherever they are, you know what I mean? It was a very beautiful, beautiful event. We couldn't wait for Christmas, Božić, Velikden, you know what I mean? A lot of other things, you know what I mean? It was very nice.
Right.
I can't forget that.
So you have a lot of happy memories, and at the same time you made a very brave decision as a young boy of only 16 years old to leave your village and the life that you knew. Tell us a little bit about why you made that decision.
Well, I knew for me there is no life there simply because I was stopped to continue going to school. And I don't want to be a farmer working all my life with a shovel in my hands, and things like that, I wanted to have a decent life. I didn't care working hard. I mean, I can put my heart and soul to the work, to the job, as long as I get paid well, And I said to myself, well, I got to leave my country, and look somewhere else. It's got to be a better life somewhere else than being here, a farmer and
So you made your
hard.
decision.
Yeah, I made the decision at the age of 16.
And then what was your plan? How did you plan to leave?
I planned, I was actually the one who organized this. I asked 2 of my cousins, they agreed to come. I asked one of the villagers, and that guy that I asked to come to leave, he didn't want to leave, but the older brother convinced him. He says, if you can take my brother, I'll give you my boat so you can go. I says, I'll convince them, and I try, and finally I convinced them,
And what was his name?
Vasil. His name was Vasil. My cousin Trajan, he's in America, in States, and my other cousin Jordan is here.
So the 4 of you?
4 of us, yeah. And I went to ask the army, you know what I mean? Can you give us the permission to go to the island, for fishing? Yeah, he says, da odete teka sakate samo preko granice, da ne odete veli,
So just don't go over the border, which is exactly what you had in mind.
Exactly. And they give us the right. We went to the island. We circled once around to see if there is a patrol or something in there.
So this is the island?
The island in the Presparsko jezero, you know what I mean, in the Prespa lake.
Yes.
And we circled around and we see nothing, and we took off. We went straight to Nivici. But we stay overnight in the caves there, and
So
in
you
the
went
morning.
through the border.
To the border, yeah.
And you stayed in another Macedonian village, but this
Nivici,
time in Aegean Macedonian, Nivici.
Yeah, yeah.
And what happened there? Were you by yourself, or?
The 4 of us, And in the morning we went to the village and people started coming out. Oh, you're coming from the other side. I says, yeah. And the lady, first thing first, she asked me, how old are you? I said, 16. You better tell them you're older because you look older, she says, because they might send you back. And I said, okay. So I told them I'm 17.
So you told who? What happened?
To tell when the police come, you know what I mean, that I should tell them.
So the police came to you, or did you go to them?
No, they came to us.
Which police was this?
The Greek police.
Okay, so what happened? What did they want?
They came and they took us to another place where they were sort of asking us all kinds of questions. Why you living? What kind of army you have in your village? What kind of weaponry they have? things like that. You
And
know
when
what I
they
mean?
asked you why you left, what was your answer?
We want to go to America. We're looking for a better life. And they said to us, what better life, you know? Serbia is a good country, you know what I mean? And, you know, you shouldn't be leaving Tito and all that, you know, because they were friends with Greece, you know
So
what
they
I mean?
tried to convince you
Yeah,
to
yeah.
go back,
Yeah.
but they
But
couldn't,
no,
eh?
no.
So what did you do next?
The next, they took us to Florina, Lerin, which is Lerin. And we stayed there for 2 weeks again, examinations, you know, why this and why that, you know, asking you all kinds of things, you know, about how much army, what kind of a weaponry, do they have planes, this and that, you know what I mean? For 2 weeks we were there, and then from there we went...
Was this like a refugee camp?
No, there
were
was
there
just...
other people who were also escaping from Macedonia at that time?
It wasn't really a camp, just a place for overnight, and the next day they take you to Florina, Lerin, which is Lerin, Panache. We stayed there 2 weeks, again, back and forth with examination and whatnot, asking different questions, you know.
And where did they keep you in Lerin?
Lerin, they keep us in there was a place there, I don't think it was a hotel, I don't know, but we stayed there for 2 weeks.
Were there other people there?
Yeah.
Other Macedonians
Well,
who had also were trying to escape, or was it just you?
No, there was other people except 4 of us, which we together left the country. You know what I
Okay.
mean? I didn't see anybody else at the time.
So you stayed there and you were
For 2 weeks.
interrogated for 2
Yeah,
weeks?
2 weeks. From there we went to Salonika, the same thing over again, the same questions and whatnot, you know. When we finished
They
there,
were still trying to convince you to go back?
not really, but they asked like questions, you know, how much army you have there at the village and what kind of a weaponry they have and whatnot. And after that, we went straight to the camp in Lavrio.
So there was a
In
camp
the Greece, yeah,
of
camp.
refugees,
Refugees, we were 800 people in that camp.
all from Macedonia?
And all of them, 90% were from Macedonia, and maybe a few from Serbia, and maybe a few people from Albania, but all of them, they were from
And where
Macedonia.
was the camp?
In Lavrion.
And is that close
In-
to Solon?
No, close to Athens. It's about 2 hours south from Athens. You
So
know
they
what I mean?
took you to that
To that
camp.
place, yeah, like I said, there were 800 people there.
And what was life like in the refugee camp?
Well, it was beautiful. Nobody bothers you. They feed you. They clothe you if you want, if you needed clothes or something, you know. But no hassle of any kind, providing you don't do anything stupid.
And how long were you there in that
I
camp?
was there for 11 months.
And during that time, what were you waiting for, or what was your goal?
Well, there was an American, how shall I put it? Who were looking, no, it was a Red Cross, pardon me. People from Red Cross, and they were asking us where we want to go. He says, if you want to go to Belgium, you can leave right now. No, I says, no, I didn't leave my country to go to Belgium. I want to go to America. As far as America is concerned, you cannot go to America. First of all, do you have anybody in America? I says, no. He says, you can't go. What about Australia? He says, no. I says, I don't want to go to Australia, you know. How about Canada? Canada, he says, I'll take. And I'm glad that I really chose Canada, you know what I mean? Now I'm very thankful.
So when you said you want to go to Canada, what was the procedure after that?
The procedure was I had to wait for the papers, and that was, I think, up to the Greek authorities, you know what I mean? So I went in Athens for examination, you know.
Like a medical examination?
Yeah, to get my visa, you know. And it took about, I stayed altogether 11 months until I got my visa to come to Canada.
And what year was that you stayed in the camp?
In the camp, 1957, no, 1956. 57 I came here. Yeah.
And then what was the news like when you heard that everything was ready? Do you remember that day? Like, how did you find out that you were able to come to Canada?
They come to the camp, you know, they tell, they call you the name, you know, there is a supervision, they say, okay, now come outside, there was a big area, you know what I mean? For those of you who expecting passports, the passports are ready, you know. They give us the passports and you see the date there, and you don't have to worry, they have everything organized for you, you know what I mean? They take you with the automobile, you know what I mean, wherever bus, you know, and they take you to Athens, and from Athens we took the ship Frederiki. That used to be
Now,
called.
were your other friends also accepted? Did the four of you come together?
My village guy and my other cousin, we accepted it. The other one, not that he didn't accept it, but somehow, for some reason, he spent 3 years in
the camp.
In camp.
And Louis, you must have been excited that you got your visas and you were ready for your journey to Canada. Tell us about how your journey started and where you went.
I was extremely excited when they told me we had to go to Athens. They give us the papers, and they had to give us $25 for the ship, you know what I mean, to have money to spend. We took the ship from Athens. The travel was pretty good.
And you know the name of the ship?
Frederiki.
Okay.
Yeah. And but the ocean was very rough, you know.
What month was this?
That was in July.
1950?
1957.
Okay.
And actually one person passed away, you know what I mean, because I guess maybe he had some kind of a sickness or something, you know. But anyway, we got to Halifax. And
so straight from Athens to Halifax?
To Halifax.
Okay.
When we landed in Halifax, I went to this store, you know, because I was hungry to see what do they have there, you know what I mean. When I see the shelf with a loaf of breads, jams and whatnot, you know what I mean, I grabbed one loaf of bread and one jar of jam, and I said to myself, that's the country for me, I said, you know. Thank God I found a country, you know what I mean. I was the happiest man alive. Even until this day, I couldn't ask for a better country, believe me.
And then what happened with your journey from Halifax on?
From Halifax, we took the train, and I think we came to Windsor. Somebody was supposed to wait there, but when we went there, he says, no, you shouldn't be coming here. You should go straight to Toronto. We have a person there waiting for you. Okay. So finally we went.
Was this back. Somebody from the government? From the
No, our guy. Like, for me, you must know the guy, what was the name?
What Prilep? Gajovski.
Gajovski, yeah. Sime Gajovski, yeah, he's the one who welcomed us at the station here.
So you knew him, or did he just happen
No, I didn't know him.
To know that you're coming? Do you know how he knew that you're coming?
Or he was informed. There was a priest from Yugoslavia living in Windsor. He was the one who was doing the guarantee or warranty, whatever you call it.
So somebody from the Macedonian community guaranteed you from Windsor, and that's why you got your visas.
Yeah. He did the guarantee, and he told us that.
Do you know his name? It was a priest.
In
the Windsor Church.
Yeah. But I don't remember his name.
And he told Sime,
to wait for us there, for him to find us a place to stay. You know what I mean? And thank God there is people that if you come on your own with nobody waiting for you, what are you going to do?
Yes.
You don't speak a word of English. Nothing.
So Sime met you at Union Station?
Union Station, and he found us a place to stay, and then he helped us to get a job.
And tell us about your first job.
He says, Louis, I'm going to get you a job. I know this guy, he says, has a restaurant. Tell me, one Macedonian doesn't have a restaurant. I says to myself. So he took me to Blur and Spadina, And this restaurant was owned by a guy from Neolani. What was his name? From Neolani. Gee.
Do you know the name of the restaurant?
It was called Varsity Restaurant.
Varsity Restaurant.
Yeah, Varsity Restaurant.
Mm-hmm. And the owner was a Macedonian from Neolani.
Macedonian from
yes,
Neolani.
from the Aegean part of Macedonia. And then, what did you do in the restaurant? What was your work like?
Oh, the biggest profession you could get there was washing dishes, you know what I mean? Mm-hmm. And believe me, I had tears in my eyes, you know, at the end of the day. That place was so busy, you wouldn't believe it, you know. Mm-hmm. Dishes coming like there is no tomorrow. You think the truck brings them in and it just dumps it there, you know. Mm-hmm. And I said to myself, you know, as I was working, and I said to myself, I'm sure, I said, I'll be getting probably $100 a week, you know what I mean, for this kind of sweat, you know, sweating. And when the week came and he comes with a paycheck, I opened the envelope, $25. Mm. Oh my God, I started crying again in front of him. Uh-huh. Why are you crying? I said, I am killing myself, I said, for $25. I said, you know what I mean? Oh, but don't worry, we pay you unemployment insurance, we pay you this and that. Mm-hmm. Next week, he says, I'll give you a raise. He says, don't worry, I says, you know. So the next paycheck come, you know what I mean, $27. Give me extra. But I didn't stay too long, you know. I found a place, I found out that one guy in New Toronto, he opened up a restaurant. They were Macedonian, and he was looking for a dishwasher, $40 a week, but no day off.
Do you remember his name?
Again, I don't remember.
That's okay. Or the restaurant?
Restaurant, yeah. What was the name? Alex, I'm sorry.
His
name was Alex, yeah, but I don't know the last name, you know.
Do you know the name of the restaurant?
The restaurant, I think that wasn't Varsity. Varsity was once, but I don't remember the restaurant.
But then you started working for...
I started working for him,
a little
you know
bit
what I mean?
bigger salary, and then?
Bigger salary. And once I started picking up a little bit English, you know what I mean? And I wanted to learn actually to be a chef or something like that, you know? And the old guy who was working there, he says, you're a young guy. I don't suggest that you should be working as a chef or cook. He says, you know, you should be working outside as a waiter. He says, you know what I mean? So I took his advice. And I did pretty good. But later on, I changed so many restaurants. I didn't stay too long in one place. But then I had a friend of mine who were very good friends. He was working for this company, Philips Electronics. He says, Louis, I'd like to take you to work with me. He says, you know, but please don't embarrass me. I says, why would I embarrass you? I says, you know, don't worry about it. So he took me there, and I thank the lucky stars. You know, I started there. I had a great life working for them. I worked for 40 years. That's where that thing is.
For Philips.
Philips.
And tell us what work you did at Philips.
First of all, I started there on the production line. You know, I was working the production line. But then, every so often, there is a posting on the bulletin board that they need somebody for incoming inspection, to inspect goods, you know what I mean? Because they were working about 3,000 people there. It was a big place, you know what I mean? They were making car radio, television, hi-fis, you name it.
All kinds of electronics.
All kinds of electronic stuff, you know. It was a big, big company.
And where was it located, the
located at Lee site and
Don Mills or
Lee site, Eglinton.
Eglinton,
yeah,
that's right.
Lee site and Eglinton. And like I said, they were doing a lot of things. And every time when they had new jobs, new positions, you know what I mean?
Promotions.
But as I said, I started on the production line, and then they wanted inspector to inspect the product, you know, in case of some kind of a fault or whatever. And they have a bulletin on the bulletin board. And I go there and it says, you have to have a high school, you have to have some experience. And I said, yeah, I have a high school, but I left the diploma back home, you know. I didn't took it with me. I didn't took any documents, you know. But I was eager. Just show me how you do it and what needs to be done. You don't have to worry about a thing after that. I says, you know. And believe me, I went through all kinds of jobs, skilled jobs, you know what I mean? Inspector there. I was a machinist setup. That was give me a heart attack, you know. That was a hard job to learn, you know what I mean?
Machinist?
Machinist setup.
Which means?
To set it up for a riveting, for making cabinets, you know what I mean?
For all kinds of different
all
products.
kinds of different products, you know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
And then all the wires, you have to do the riveting, you know what I mean? And you have to set up the machine. When you put on there was like a little piece, you know, that you plug it into something else there, you know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
And you had to set it up to the point where you don't cut the whole wire, only to cut the rubber, and the wire to be naked, you know, there.
So very precise.
Yeah. Oh God. Yeah. It was. But I was very ambitious. Nothing I would not try, providing I've been given the opportunity.
And we have a nice picture of you here. Can you tell us about your position there?
That was the lowest of the low. That Phillips, as it go on, you know what I mean, they start closing sections because the union, you know, was asking a lot of money.
Yes.
And every time they give them the money, they close one section. After that, they close another section, you know. And that's to keep a job with a company. That's when I end up. The last job, the last position was a forklift driver.
And in your career there, you received many certificates and acknowledgments.
Yeah.
We have a really nice photo here of you holding a certificate for 25 years of service. Can you tell us about that? Was a very special ceremony?
Oh yeah, that was excellent ceremony. You know, they gave me day off that day, you know what I mean? And they had to send a limo to pick me and my family. I had to have about up to 15, 16 people, you know, the family and few guests if I want. You know
so you invited your family and we have the picture right here with the limo and and then what happened? Where did you go?
And they said, it's you pick the place where you want to go. That's where we're going to take you. This is your day, your celebration, and we'll take you wherever you want to go. So I picked, this was in Gilwood Village.
Yes.
Gilden. There was a beautiful place there, beautiful restaurant, and with the scenery, everything was beautiful down there. I said, that's where I want to go. So that's where we went, you know what I mean? We had it there.
And that was to celebrate your 25th years of service.
Yeah.
And then you continued to work for Philips, and tell us about the plaque that you received.
This one was given to me 25 years of service, and they showed me a really great time. They took me, as I said, to the restaurant, my whole family, wining and dining.
Yes.
And they give me 1 month's salary pay, you know, for 1 month bonus, you know. So they really looked after me, you know what I mean? I work hard, but they acknowledged that I really did work hard, you know, and I...
and for your hard work, you also received a nice certificate and a nice plaque. This one's for 40 years of loyal and outstanding service to Philips Electronics Canada. Was that when you retired?
Yeah, that's when I retired. But this one I think was for 25th. 40? Okay. Yeah, 40 years, yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
You received so many certificates,
and
plaques that it's hard to keep in mind, but this one is definitely the one that you got for your retirement.
And I'm really proud to have this, and I'm proud of the company, you know what I mean? Philips is one of the greatest companies on the face of the earth, believe me. Yeah.
So you really enjoyed working for them?
Oh yeah, definitely.
And you were very busy working for them, and also you had a growing family as well at the same time. Yeah. So tell us about your family life and how you met your wife.
My wife, we met at the time, that was a long time ago. There was no Macedonian church or Macedonian hall, 1956. I met her at the Sveti Kirill Methodist Church.
Yes.
At the banquet hall, there was a dance going on, and I saw her there on the side with her parents sitting there, nice-looking girl, you know what I mean? And I looked at her and I said to myself, I think that girl is for me, you know what I mean? So once they started playing, waltz and dance like that, and I ran right away. I says, "Can I have a dance with you, man, girl?" I said, So she says, "Okay." And the father looked, I don't know whether he was pleased or not, but I didn't ask his permission.
Yeah.
So that's how we got to know, and after that we never lost touch, you know what I mean?
So how did your courtship continue? After that first meeting, maybe the father wasn't as happy as you and your wife. Your wife's name?
Vicky.
And her last name at that time?
Pavlo.
Uh-huh.
Pavlo.
And what happened afterwards? How did you continue your courtship?
Well, I gave her my number, my telephone, she gave me hers, and we used to phone each other, and we say where we're going to meet. Or usually meet at Withrow Park, you know what I mean? They were living close by, and we used to go there for a walk at the park and whatnot, you know what I mean?
Okay. Were there other Macedonian events that you both went to together?
Oh, yeah.
Where did you usually go? Was it picnics or dances at the St.
Picnics, but mostly dances, you know what I mean? There was dances at St. Cyril Church.
Methody, yes.
Methody.
The Macedonian church.
There was another one.
Another church?
Another church. Two churches, right?
St. George?
St. George, yeah.
There were events at St. George also for young people?
Yeah.
Okay. And how long was your courtship?
We went together steady for a year, I guess. And then we decided to get married. She was underage, you know what I mean?
How old was?
When I met her, she was not even 16. 15? 14. Sorry. 14, yeah. I had to wait for her to grow up, you know what I mean? And then to get married, you know what I mean?
Okay. That's really interesting, yes. And how old were you at this time?
Oh, gee, I was 6 years older than her. So she was 16, I was, 20, huh? 22.
22.
Yeah.
So you were both very young.
Yeah.
And by this time, were you working at Philips or was it before?
No, I wasn't working at Philips.
No,
I
you
was
were
working
working
in restaurants. Yeah. Yeah.
Okay. And where did you first live when you started to, when you got married?
When I got married? Oh, we were living together with her family because my wife, she was only a child in the family, you know what I mean? And they didn't mind me living with them, you know.
Okay. And where did you live?
At 21 Kimberley.
Was there were there other Macedonians near on the where they lived?
I think so. Not that I know of, but I think there were some. Yeah, but I never got to know them or anything like that. We were there for a very short time. Then we bought a business at O'Connor in just west of Victoria Park.
Okay, tell us about what kind of business you bought.
We opened up a dry cleaning business, and the reason for that, we opened a dry cleaning business because my father-in-law was a tailor. My mother-in-law, she was a dressmaker, and that was a suitable thing to have a dry cleaning. People come with all kinds of alteration, you know what I mean? And we were doing really, really well, you know what I mean, with the cleaner.
And what was the name of the?
Louis Cleaner. Okay. Louis Cleaner, actually.
So you were working there yourself as well?
I was working for the company at the time, but on my spare time after I finished there, I used to work at a store Or sometimes people would phone me to pick up clothes or something. I would go and pick it up.
So you
know,
helped
to
as
clean-
well.
Yeah.
And your wife was working at this
My
time?
wife, she was running the place
Okay.
at the time, you know, and she had an office job, you know what I mean? She quit the office job and to work as a cleaner. Well, if you want to go into business, that's the way to do
Yes.
it. You
And
know?
where was your cleaning business?
At O'Connor, just west of Victoria Park. There's a Holland Plaza, they call it, small plaza, you know.
Right. And how long was the business?
We had
running?
it for 5 years. My wife and I, we were living in the apartment upstairs because it was an apartment, you know what I mean? And we kept it for 5 years, but then my mother-in-law was living at 21 Kimberley and my father-in-law, and we tried to have a child, and it was kind of unsuitable, you know what I mean? So what we decide, let's buy a nice, decent house, you know what I mean? And forget the apartment, forget the other house. So we bought a house at Victoria Park and between Finch and Shepherd. Nice big backsplit house. And we moved together, you know what I mean? We were only 4 people, you know?
Right.
And we raised my kids there, and everybody were happy. My mother-in-law, he was the happiest person alive.
Yes.
Oh.
And tell us about your children. On this picture, we have a picture of your family and your wife.
I don't see it. That's okay. Okay. That's my mother. That's my daughter, myself, my wife, my son, my father-in-law.
Yeah, and tell us the name
my
of
mother.
your daughter and your son.
My daughter is Diane. My son's name is Stephen.
Okay.
Yeah. My father-in-law is, his name is Louis too. And my mother-in-law is Tomka. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Were you attending a church? Where did you go?
Oh yeah. Actually, we were going, when we got married, that's when they were start to build, we got married at the hall there at the plaza where the church
Thorncliffe?
is. Thorncliffe Plaza, yeah. There was a church upstairs. There was a hall, but we were using it as a church, you know. And we got, my wife and I, we got married there at that hall, you know.
So this is while St. Clement was being built?
Yeah.
So you got married in
Yeah.
the hall
Yeah,
while it
exactly.
was being built?
Yeah, yeah.
And what year did you get married?
1964.
Okay.
Yeah.
And then tell us about your involvement at St. Clement, and as it was being built, were you involved, excited?
Oh yeah, naturally. You know, I never got personally involved in any kind of help or anything, you know what I mean? Because I was just beginning, you know, in my life, you know what I mean? And I just could not afford to, I had to be on my job and work endless hours.
Yes.
You know what I mean? I work really hard, you know. And, but I was very happy with the church, you know. I was going to church all the time. And so was everybody else.
Do you remember any fundraising events that they had?
Oh yeah, yeah.
What kind of events do you remember?
We had one event at a hotel. Gosh, it was about 3,000 people. It was packed. I forget what the name of the hall.
The Holiday Inn, or no?
No, it wasn't Holiday Inn. It was by the Lakeshore Road somewhere. What was the name?
Harbor Castle?
That's
Okay.
it, Harbor Castle.
You remember that event?
Oh yeah. Couple of times they made big events, and both times they were very successful. They collected a lot of money, you know, donations and whatnot, you know. And I was always with those kind of things very generous those days, you know what I mean? You know.
So you helped with
Oh yeah,
the fundraising.
yeah, fundraising
Yeah.
and stuff, yeah.
That's great. And did you also, are there any other organizations that you belong to? Macedonian organizations that you went to events or?
I wasn't involved, but I used to go to everything that was, you know, any kind of dance, any kind of banquets. That's my lifestyle. Banquets I enjoy. Oh God, you know.
So you participated in a lot of Macedonian activities and events.
In every one. unless I had a reason for something, you know, that something is on the way, you know, that I cannot go. But other than that, you know, I'll be there and no problem at all. Yeah.
Okay. And I know that you had your, right from the beginning of coming to Canada, I mean, from leaving your village, you came to Canada, and all the time, in one way or another, you've been in the Macedonian community and attending the events and activities. Can you tell us what it was that keeps you coming back to, like you said, anything that's Macedonian?
You know, I mean, when you see any kind of event, it doesn't matter what kind, you know what I mean, you would like to go there because it's your community, it's your people, you know, you got to be supportive. You know what I mean? What kind of a Macedonian would I be if I say I don't want to have anything to do? And why not? I'm Macedonian. I like my country, and I like to contribute as much as I can. You know?
That's great. And Louis, being here in Canada for a large part of your life, what do you think that you're really proud of, you're most proud of?
There's a lot of things really that I'm proud of, really, honestly, you know. There isn't one thing that I'm proud of everything, you know. Just being here in the land, you know what I mean, I'm proud of.
Okay.
But I can't think of anything in particular, but I'm proud of everything.
Yes, and tell us about your kids, your daughter, your son.
Especially my kids, I'm
Yes.
really proud. I'm really proud. My son was the brightest kid you'll ever find, you know what I mean, but he didn't have much luck with it, you know, so my daughter, you know, she was very bright, and she finished university, she got a degree for a social worker, you know what I mean, she got office of her own, and she's fairly educated, you know. But,
Right.
you know, I'm proud of my kids, very proud.
And you worked really hard in your life.
Yes, yes.
And you are a perfect example of somebody who comes to Canada and who is able to really succeed because of all the hard work that they put into being here in Canada. What do you think is your advice, Louis, to the younger generation who are now here in Canada in order to have a good life and be successful?
I'll tell you one thing. To be successful in this world, it doesn't matter where you are. You have to have one thing in mind. Doesn't matter where you are or what you're going to do. Whatever it takes to do, if you want to be successful, you got to accept anything that's available. I said to myself, I like to go to a country where there is all kinds of opportunity. There is nothing that I would not do. Absolutely nothing. And I'll work day and night if I have to, just to be a little bit successful, to have what I need. I wasn't looking to become a millionaire like most people, you know, to have all kinds of buildings or not, you know what I mean? All I wanted in my life, to have a home, to have a vehicle, to have money to spend whichever way I want, you know what I mean? And to live decently, you know what I mean, without too much pressure in my mind, you know what I mean?
And
All the necessity that I want, I have.
Yeah, сега на македонски малко да зборниме. Може да ни кажеш, Луи, на совет на нашите помлади тука што се, за што би му кажал нив?
Јас можам да му речем едно нешто. Кој да биди, на овој свет нема ништо без да не работаш, без да не правиш ништо, разбра. Треба да смислиш убаво, да речеш, треба да се работа колку што се може за човекот да напреди. Ако ти чекаш нешто, да речеме, некој евколие што велиме ние, со лесно, со едно, со друго, не може да станеш successful or anything like that, you know what I mean? It takes hard work no matter what you do. Не можеш со седење, ништо не се праја. Јас ка многу луѓе знам, кога донетува во Канада, ке се најдевне на Данфорд, на Куини парламент, и ке ги опитвав, и јас ке му речем, Владо, кој да беше, работеш? Бре будала, јас додов во Канада, во Америка да работам, но кај ќе живиш, бе човек, му водам. Слушај, вака му водам. Со крадени, со лажени не ше живи, му водам. Еднош, два пати ќе го излежиш, некој му вода сетне тешко на тебе, разбра. И да ти кажем правото, многу наши деца, што знам јаска, не се видео, ојдо, што стана, не сака да работа, сака све со без работа, да јада, да пијете. Но овој смет нема такви работи, разбра. Без работа, без да не се стегнеш, ништо нема.
And you were lucky that you also had your wife to support you and who also felt the same as you, that
definitely.
being here in Canada is a great privilege, and working hard is part of the privilege that we have.
Yeah.
And we're so happy that Vicky is here with us. So we're going to ask her to join us and hear a little bit from her.
Okay.
Vicky, welcome to our interview. We're really happy that you can join us here with your husband. We just had a really nice opportunity to hear about Louis' life.
Thank you, Vesna. It's nice to have us both here.
And you're welcome. Tell us a little bit about yourself, where you were born, Vicky.
I was born in Lerin, and I was very young when I came here.
How old were you?
I was 6 years old when we came here.
Oh, so as a child you grew up in Lerin with your parents?
Well, I was 6 years old when I came here. Up until 6 years old, I was in Lerin.
Yes. And how about your parents? Can you tell us who they are?
My parents are Louis Pavlo, and Three Pavlo, or Tomka Pavlo.
Tomka Pavlo.
Yeah.
And are they also from Lerin?
They're from, yes, they're from Lerin. My grandparents were from Armensko, and one grandmother was from Tercia.
Okay, do you remember your grandparents' names?
Yes.
From your mother's side or your father?
My mother's side is George Misius, and his wife was Zoe Misius. And my father's
From
side,
the village of?
George was from Armensko. Zoe was from Lerin as well.
Your other grandparents?
Actually, that was his second wife. My actual grandmother passed away when I was very young. I didn't even know her. But my father's side, my grandfather on my father's side is Nick Pavlo. He was from Armensko too. And Lena Pavlo was my grandmother. She was from Tercia.
And how was it that your parents went to Lerin? Did they move especially?
Well, my father was actually born in Lerin. My mother was born in Armensko, but because her mother passed away very young, they moved to Lerin, so she was actually raised in Lerin.
Okay, and do you remember any childhood memories of Lerin?
Not too many.
You didn't go to school, you were too young?
I was kindergarten, like the first.
You did go to kindergarten?
I did go, and I remember, the only thing I remember is being on stage for a show we were putting on.
Okay, and what language did you speak when you were in the kindergarten?
In the school we spoke Greek. At home we spoke Macedonian.
Now, when you went to school, Vicky, were there other children who were Macedonian?
Yes.
Okay,
and the majority of them
they were but they were not allowed to speak Macedonian?
They were not allowed to speak Macedonian.
Was this something that everybody knew?
Yes.
Do you remember if there were any difficulties if anybody did speak Macedonian?
Well, I was too young.
It was
I really
kindergarten.
don't. Yeah,
Right.
I really don't remember. But I remember we were sort of forced into speaking Greek.
You were forced, and so you were only 6 years old, and your parents decided to come to Canada.
Yes. Actually, my grandfather was in Canada with my grandmother, my uncle, and then they brought us over here. They brought my mom and dad, myself, and my great-grandmother over.
So this was your grandfather from your father? Or
from my father's side.
So he was already...
He was already here.
And his name was?
Nick Pavlo.
Nick Pavlo,
yeah.
Okay. So your grandfather then sponsored your parents?
Yes.
And when you came to Canada, do you remember anything about the journey?
I remember, well, I was only 6, but I remember my parents were very sick on the boat.
Uh-huh.
And
So you also came with the boat?
yes,
Uh-huh.
and I used to take my great-grandmother for her dinner, for lunch, for breakfast. And that's all I remember.
Right, so you made it with the boat. Where did the boat land?
In Halifax.
In Halifax, just like
Yeah.
Louis.
Yeah.
Okay. And then what happened?
Then my grandfather met us and took us to our home, which was in Kimberley.
Mm-hmm.
And we were there for a number of years, till my son was born.
Mm-hmm. Now, you were 6 years old when you came to Canada. Do you remember those early years, what it was like to come to a new country?
Oh, it was very difficult because I didn't know the language.
Mm-hmm.
And the kids, I remember the kids laughing at me because I couldn't speak the language. It wasn't the easiest thing, but thankfully when you're young you pick up quickly, you know.
Mm-hmm.
So then everything got better after that, but it was difficult at first.
So then you learned the language, and then as you were growing up in your family, do you remember going to any Macedonian events or functions?
Only where my parents will take me, like to certain like Easter, to
Mm-hmm.
the family dances, or other, like from Florina dance, or from
The Latin dance?
Latin
Yeah.
dance. Sorry,
Mhm.
Latin
No,
dance,
it's okay.
or from Artman School dance, Choprea, you know, things
Mm-hmm.
like that.
Right. And what date was it that you landed in Canada?
It was February 1952.
Uh-huh. And as you were growing up, and do you remember when you met your husband?
Yes, we were at an Easter dance, actually, an
Mm-hmm.
afternoon dance, and my parents and we went, and I met him there, and it was like love at first sight.
Don't be shy to say it, huh?
I didn't know better.
Oh, I'm sure it was
She
what you
ruined it
said
now.
first. No. And then you mentioned that you were very young when you met and you got
Yes,
married.
actually, I was 14 when we were at that dance, and then I was going to school, and he was working nights, so he can come to the school carrying my books to the streetcar when I was
It
going
was a
home.
hard work, Zoran, but somebody had to do it.
So we
And
were.
what school were you at this time?
I was at Eastern Commerce.
Uh-huh. And you were in high school?
Yes, high school.
Okay.
And just after I turned 16, we got engaged.
And you were
And-
still in school?
I was still in school.
Wow.
And before we got engaged, he had bought me a wedding ring and engagement ring, and I wore them around my neck on a chain so my parents wouldn't see them.
Okay.
But then we got married in 1964.
Mhm. And when you got married, it's a little bit of a historic location. Can you tell us about what the makeshift church was like?
Yes, it was Sveti Clement was just being built then, so we got married at Thorncliffe Park. There's a restaurant upstairs. We got married there. We also had a reception there, and then I think a year later, the church was built.
Do you have a recollection of what it was like? What kind of an event it was when it was finished?
Oh, it was a happy event that we actually have our own church there,
Mhm.
and that was 1965. My son was christened there,
Mm-hmm.
so it was something that we had waited for a long
So
time.
it was a very special.
It was very
event.
special, very
Mhm.
special.
Right when the church was open.
Yes,
That's good.
Yeah.
And Vicky, can you tell us about I know you were busy with raising your family, but I understand that you also were very involved in starting your own business. Can you tell us a little bit?
yes. We decided we'd go into business. I was working in an office, and my husband was at Phillips at the time.
Mhm.
And as he said, my parents were like a dressmaker, and my father was a tailor, and they were very good at it. And so we thought we'd open a cleaners. So I quit my job. I stayed, looked after the cleaners, and then Louis would come in And in the evenings after his work, he would do deliveries, pick up, or he just let me go upstairs to cook while he's looked after it till we closed, you know.
Mm-hmm.
So it was fun actually. I enjoyed it.
And you spent a few years on your business?
Yes,
Mm-hmm.
for about 5 years in the business, and then actually I got pregnant after that, and we had to sell it. We had actually left someone to look after it, which she made it go down completely, you know. So we sold it, and then and we moved into our new house.
Mm-hmm.
We had already moved into our new house by then.
Okay. And in terms of you both were busy with your careers and looking after your family, but I understand that you also went quite a few times on vacation, and
Yes.
one of those vacations was Macedonia.
Yes, we did. We went to see.
Can you tell us about that?
We went to see my in-laws, and we had a good time there, like the whole family
So
around.
you went with your children?
No, actually, my daughter wasn't born then. My son was very little, very young, so they didn't go with us. But a few years later, my parents went and took my son with them to see his grandparents there, you know. But my daughter had never been there, which I'm sorry to this day.
Yeah, I am too.
Yeah, but we did go. We had a good time there. Then we went over to Ledin and stayed with some of my relatives.
Yes. What was that like, Vicky? Because Ledin being, a place where a part of Macedonia in the Aegean part.
Yeah.
When you went, did you hear anybody speaking the Macedonian language?
Not outside.
Mm-hmm.
Inside, when we were in their homes, yes. Outside, I remember one day we went with my grandmother's brother. We were outside, and I had started speaking Macedonian, and he was afraid to say anything. He just clammed up, like, you know. And because I wasn't too involved in politics and everything, I thought, why is he quiet, you know? But that was the reason.
So he was
why.
afraid. What year was that, Vicky?
1970 or 68 was it? 1970, I think.
1969.
Oh, 69, okay.
69.
Yeah.
So they were fearful,
Still-
and they were not speaking any Macedonian
No.
outside. They were
No.
not allowed to do that.
No.
Right. And in terms of going ahead, and did any of them come to Canada?
Those people that were there then, no, they didn't.
Mhm.
No, they didn't.
But
They were pretty old at that point,
Right.
like, you know.
but they spoke Macedonian
But they spoke Macedonian.
when you were
In the
there.
house, yeah.
In the house.
In the house,
Mhm.
they did. Outside, no.
Okay.
And when we were there, we went on a train to go from Ledin to see your parents. And we were on a train, and this policeman came up and started talking to my husband in Greek, and he knew how to speak it, but I never did. I had forgotten. And so he says, why don't you know how to speak Greek? I says, the only words I knew is Felon the Alexero. And that was it. I want to know, but I can't. I don't know.
Yeah.
That was the only Greek I knew.
Mhm. Right. And when you here in Canada, you had your family and an opportunity to to speak Macedonian. At home, what do you normally speak?
Well, because my parents and my grandmother were living with us, it was Macedonian.
Mm-hmm.
The kids knew Macedonian and everything. We never spoke Greek in the house.
No.
My uncle went through a lot with the Greek people. I mean, he was tortured quite
So
a bit.
this is your uncle from your
My father's brother,
your father's brother?
Yeah.
Uh-huh. And what is his name?
Pancha.
Punch. And what happened? Can you tell us a little bit about his story?
I don't know the whole story, but they locked him up in something that
So
was
he's
like
from what village?
he's from Ledin as well.
Ledin.
Yeah.
Uh-huh.
And they locked him into like a cupboard, low cupboard, and
Like a
kept him
closet.
like a little
Closet.
low closet.
Yeah.
Kept him there for a long, long time.
Do you know why?
Someone said that he's more Macedonian or something. Špion беше.
Uh-huh. Somebody said that he
Yeah.
was a Macedonian
Yeah.
advocate.
Yeah.
Yes.
and he wasn't, but that's all I know.
So he was tortured
He was tortured.
as a result of that.
Yeah.
That's too bad. Yeah. So, Vicky, can you tell us nešto na makedonski od tvoje želba? Što misliš za ľuѓето што гледат, и ќе има многу млади исто што гледат? Што сакаш да му кажеш за тука, за во Канада и за животот, за да бидат добри?
I would like to see the younger people going to the churches, going to the dances, getting together, not to forget their heritage. Just, the more Macedonians, the closer we are, the better it is for everybody. So I would encourage them to take their kids as well to the Macedonian churches, to the Macedonian events. Don't forget your roots.
Yes, and especially you're a very good example, Vicky, for giving that kind of advice, because you were only 6 years old.
Yes.
Yet, when you came to Canada, yet you're still very, very active in the Macedonian community, and you know about your heritage. What was it that what is it that has motivated you, do you think, all this time to be part of the Macedonian community?
Well, I've always loved the Macedonian people. I mean, my relatives, my friends my parents had. They're in my heart. They're my people, And then Louis is so much after the Macedonian people as well. So the two of us combined, can imagine, we're real Macedonians.
And can we maybe end with anything else that we might not have talked about? Maybe we didn't ask that you may have that you'd like to mention. And Vicky, I know with your involvement in the Macedonian community for so long, have you been involved in kind of volunteer activities that have been going on?
Only in the choir.
Oh, tell us about
the
that.
church choir. We were in there for a while. We're not there now. We're getting a little too old to get up every and go. But we were in the church choir. I enjoyed it,
So it's St. Clement?
St. Clement's, yeah.
Uh-huh.
I really enjoyed it. In fact, I'm sort of thinking maybe I should go start again.
Oh, okay. Can you tell us from when you were involved?
From 2003 or 4 or something like that. Then my parents got quite sick, and I had spent time with them and everything. So we sort of stopped going.
2 years.
About 2 years.
We sang 2 years, and
Yeah.
then
So you were singing first year. And who was your conductor at that time?
Philip.
This is Philip Angelovski?
Angelovski, yes.
Okay.
Yes.
Okay, so you know him.
Oh, yes, we know him. Yes. Yeah.
We had also the opportunity to interview Philip, so
Yeah,
it was
nice man.
great. Yes, so that's wonderful that you were singing at the choir at the church.
Yes, like I said, I really enjoyed it, but
if you don't mind me to interrupt
Please.
just a bit, I would have never ever quit the choir, but I just could not tolerate the too much talking while singing. So it has to be said, what I mean?
Yes. No, that's fine.
Yeah,
it's important to have a choir, and it's people
You're
like
there to
yourself
sing.
that go and volunteer their time.
Yeah.
So absolutely, I understand that
You're
you
there
want
to
there to
sing, not to socialize. You know what I mean? Socialize after you finish.
right. Yeah, but you did that's a great contribution that you were able to be part of.
I loved it.
Right.
I enjoy every minute of it, believe you me, and I love to sing.
Uh-huh.
As soon as I open up, my voice started coming out, you know what I mean?
Uh-huh.
And with Peter and Minus, we used to sing together. I enjoy every minute of it. But
So other Macedonians were involved as well?
yes,
yeah.
Angie and Peter Minus, Angie's my cousin actually, and my daughter's Nunkoi as well. And they're the ones that got us started there.
Yeah.
But we should have continued, but sometimes events don't allow you to.
Right, yeah. And I see you a lot at Macedonian events.
Yes, we love going. We love going to.
What kind of events do you normally go to?
Actually, banquets.
Mm-hmm.
Banquets, we love going to banquets.
I hate to miss banquets.
Yeah.
The last time we missed one, what was the reason I forget? Oh, I was so upset. There's something, I don't know what it was.
Yeah. But there's something about being together in
Yes.
the community that
Yeah.
keeps you coming back.
Oh, of course, the Macedonian people. Yeah.
I feel like I'm doing something good, I go to the events like this, and going to church, what I mean, things like that. It's your people, I mean.
And how long has it been since you left your village, Louis?
60 years.
So it's been,
60 exactly years since I left.
and still you have the Macedonian
Yeah.
spirit.
Oh yeah, definitely. That will never go away. No way.
And you
Yeah.
too, Vicky,
About 55, roughly.
that you left your.
I left, yeah. But, sometimes there are times when I wish I was back in Macedonia living there, I don't know why. Sometimes, I wish I was back in Macedonia, but
Yeah.
this is a country for me, but the Macedonian people have to stay with me.
Right. It's like you can't take Macedonia out of
No, I
We
can't.
love the music. Oh God, I love
Yeah.
the music.
Yeah. And even my children, Steve and Diane, they love the Macedonian music. They just adore it,
you. So that would be a good way to end. What kind of advice do you have for Macedonian parents who are bringing up their little ones now in Canada? What would your advice be to them in terms of keeping up the Macedonian heritage for their family?
As I say, take them to church, take your children, your grandchildren to church, take them to events, Macedonian events. Yes, we have to do things Canadian-wise here, certain things, but we don't have to take Macedonia out of our life, completely. There's nothing better than Macedonian people and our traditions, our customs. Keep them alive in your homes. That's what my mother always did with us and with my children. We kept things alive in home.
You think that has helped?
Oh yes,
A lot.
definitely, definitely.
Yeah.
Great. Well, thank you very much for
Thank
having the interview here with us at the Canadian Macedonian Historical Society. We really appreciate your input and you taking the time to share your life story. Thank you.